Welcome everybody to tonight's edition of the AC Chat and Wrap. Well, tonight here in Australia, wherever you are in the world, I hope you are having a fantastic day or have had a fantastic day. I'm very excited because we now have an official challenger for the 36th edition of the America's Cup. It is Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli, who we will see facing off against Emirates Team New Zealand, the defender of the cup, and an amazing guest and friend of the show that we have tonight to talk us through just what might go down between these two and to review the Prada Cup Final. Our commiserations, of course, to INEOS Team UK is multiple world champion, an America's Cup winner himself, and of course an Olympian to boot. It is John Bertrand. Thank you so much, John, for joining us this evening. How are you?
Just fine, thanks, Nick.
Excellent. And you did a bit of racing yourself on the weekend.
Yes, Etchells. I love the class. It's the hottest one design racing in the country, and a lot of the Australian Olympic sailing team are integrated into the Etchell because they can't travel overseas at the moment, and so the racing is red hot. It's fantastic.
Oh, I bet it is. And I was lucky enough to do a few races just a few weeks ago in the Milson Silver Goblets, but you won 2 races in a row on Sunday, just the same as Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli. 2 wins each. Fantastic.
Yeah, we're pretty happy with that. Out in the ocean, which is because the seas were too big off Palm Beach, so we raced inside, and it was very tricky, and we got lost a little bit. But outside, we had our wheels on. It was great.
Fantastic. And you're sailing with Jake Lilly, as you mentioned, some of our Olympic sailors. You love the fin too, don't you?
Yes, I have a long history in the fin class. I competed in 2 Olympics in the fin and won the bronze at the Canadian 76 Olympics, something I'm very proud of. That was before the Australian Institute of Sport was set up, so we had no coaching, no money, no nothing. So pretty happy to get onto that podium.
Oh, very, very well done. And in what is also a very tweaky class, not unlike these America's Cup boats that we have seen change and basically go through complete roller coaster rides, I think, John, is a good way to explain it, with INEOS Team UK being on the back foot in the America's Cup World Series. They came through into the round robin and took the win in the round robin, only to be beaten, basically, well, let's say convincingly, by Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli. I think we can fairly say it was a convincing win.
Yeah, well, these projects, particularly this new class, any new class is always a much steeper development curve, a lot less known about, the idiosyncrasies and the ultimate final, what is the best solution. And so all these syndicates were improving all the time. We saw a massive upgrade. The first major challenger was Sir Thomas Lipton. I'm not sure.
I think I have him down 5 times. Yeah, Shamrock.
So, and that put Lipton Tea on the map in America. And it's hard to know, how much of a business focus that was relative to. There's no question there was a desire to get the cup back to Britain. Baron Bich in the 70s and 80s, he challenged 4 times, and he basically said that if I can sell plastic ballpoint pens to the Americans, surely I can win the America's Cup. And he was unsuccessful each time, as was Sir Thomas Lipton. You've got now Patricio Bertelli, 6 America's Cup challenges, never won it. Here he is into the finals again, the owner of Prada. And our own Alan Bond, he challenged 4 times before, actually, as it turns out, we were successful with Australia too, which changed the America's Cup forever. It moved it from the world of amateur to a professional world. But, you've got to ask the question, why? Why is it so? Why do these people spend so much money? Larry Ellison, the number of times he challenged and defended. And, part of it, knowing, these characters a fair bit, and we have now Jim Ratcliffe, his first America's Cup challenge with INEOS.
Yeah.
Will he re-challenge again and retain the challenger of record positioning here that he has? All of these things, it's ego, there's no question. It's global prominence. It's certainly with someone like Alan Bond, it was the ability to move from being a regional trader to a global trader from a business point of view, and as a result, millions of dollars are spent in the pursuit here. So it's really interesting. So here we go. We've got Bertelli now challenging the sixth America's Cup. He's now into the actual match in 2 weeks' time, and it's all for him. This thing is a big deal in Italy, primetime television, the last day of racing.
Which has been fantastic. Yeah, it should be. It so should be. And I've been surprised to hear from some of my Italian friends. I'll just bring Bertelli up on the screen here on that Luna Rossa website. Very proud wearing his kit, and he was very much involved in the celebrations as well, which we saw that just went absolutely mental in New Zealand. These guys, I think maybe they become family. I mean, you'll have more experience to this, John. Is it that community aspect that you start to form with your team, or is it something more?
It's much more than that. There's no question. The team environment is very important. We're talking about the syndicate heads here. The money, where the money comes from, not the guys and the girls involved in the actual syndicates. But it's really what drives these people to spend so much money and so much time and so much passion. It's really it's one of these things. It's because it's there. It's like the moon landing. It's because it's there. Yeah. And the America's Cup is the most prestigious sporting event in the world. It's been going for 170 years. It started off before the US Civil War, to put it in context. So it's the longest running sporting event in modern history, longer than the Olympic Games as we know it today. And when, for example, Louis Vuitton got involved, which was the 1983 America's Cup, Henri Racamire, who was then chairman, he married the great-granddaughter of Louis Vuitton, and he was the chair and one of the most wealthy people in Paris. He's since passed on. Yeah. I said, why are you involved? Louis Vuitton, 1983. It was the Louis Vuitton Cup then. Now it's called the Prada Cup. He says, because we can't find anything as prestigious as this event called the America's Cup. And he said to me, John, as a result, I've decided, not that he could decide, but I've decided to sponsor the America's Cup for the next 100 years. They're crazy stuff, but it's typical of the long-range, view that, some of these people can take. So here we got, Patricio Bertelli, totally integrally involved. He's over in New Zealand, and this is his sixth challenge. But the Kiwis have been involved 10 times. Yeah. Both as challengers and defenders. That's part of the DNA of New Zealand now.
Yeah, because...
And how do they do it? On a smell of an oil rag, half the budget, typically.
100%.
Very innovative.
A lot of people don't understand that about New Zealand. It's their government. It's their taxpayers' money that's actually going towards this cup, which is just a whole nother level again, I think. And so, as you say, it's in their DNA. They're brought up on the cup and how important it is. So perhaps they're one of few countries that could have actually made this happen during a pandemic.
Well, I think Italy would have been able to do it, but they're the only country that has major government support. But still peanuts relative to these other syndicates. Again, you talk about the great innovation of the Kiwis. They also have other sponsors as well, of course, Emirates and whatever. But, the Team New Zealand is on the same level as the All Blacks in terms of prestige and acknowledgement and just the following within New Zealand. So it is of national importance that New Zealand do well in the America's Cup. It's just part of the deal. It's amazing.
I wish it was like that here. Do you wish it was like that here? I mean, I know you got to experience it, and all credit to you and your team and what you did to change the history of the America's Cup. But I wish we had a team sometimes, JB.
Well, you're now in the order of a cool 200 million Australian dollars to be able to play. It's a 4-year program. You get 150, maybe 200 people involved. All the technology. It's a technology race. So you need multi-billionaires to be able to write a check out for 200 million. So the question is, and we've climbed Everest already. We won it. No one else had done it for the world. Whereas these other countries, Italy has never won it. Britain has never won The US are obviously through the New York Yacht Club are desperately trying to get it back after they lost, to us in 1983. So there's a lot of history here.
Indeed. So it was an interesting, probably an interesting Challenger series for you, JB, to look at it that way. You've got the UK who've never won it. You've got the Italians who have never won it. New York, who you won it off. It's an interesting set of circumstances. But now we have the same scenario that we saw in 2000 with the Team New Zealand syndicate up against Luna Rossa. So this will be an interesting rematch, so to speak.
It will. A totally different world, of course. The technology has moved on dramatically. Let me say also the great credit that you have to give to the New Zealanders to come up with this design.
Yeah.
Bertelli wanted a single hull boat. This was one of his requirements as being Challenger of record. And that's been a pretty tenuous relationship, obviously, between the Kiwis and the Italians. But nevertheless, they're there. They're on the starting line. But the point is that they then came up with this flying machine. So it's a great credit to their ability, their software development and their performance prediction programs, that they're able to create a flying machine, a single-hull flying machine, which actually works. And when they were first speculating, people would suggest that this thing will never fly. You may need 15 or 20 knots of breeze for the thing to fly. And they decided 6 knots is the minimum wind strength, and by golly, they're flying about that wind speed.
Which is amazing, just phenomenal.
Yeah, it really shows how advanced the in my opinion at least, the technology within the Team New Zealand camp is in this regard.
Indeed, and I know I've shown you a few of the stats that I've done up. The last time that we saw them match up in 2000, it was the IACC class, or the International Americas, the AC class, and we had a 24-ton boat. Now we have a 6.4-ton boat, very different in weight there. The length isn't too different, 25 metres for the IACC to 22.86 metres. Obviously a very different composition from your fiberglass to your carbon fibre, and displacement to foiling. We've come a very long way. And
just imagine what it'll be like in another 20 years.
Yeah.
It'll make today look like T-model Ford stuff.
Far out. Which is so crazy to think about it. So I thought we might actually have a little bit of a look at the last time that these two matched up. I do have a video, thanks to the America's Cup channel, which is pretty fantastic. They have the 5th race of the America's Cup in 2000 in the Cup match, which was the match that was won by Emirates to take the title. They actually took it 5-0 last time these two met. So there might be a little bit of psychology there as well. But I might just show you the start and the end of this race. So a very different pre-start to what we are seeing in these boats as well, JB. So we might have a little bit of a look, and thank you very much to the America's Cup Challenge channel for showing this to us.
Halfway down the committee boat, whereas
se lui si parcheggia tiene un po' qualcosa, Stefano.
Flat chat.
Molliamo prima e poi lo tiene a virare.
Team New Zealand from this angle. By Dalla.
Pronto a mollare?
Just going out.
Molla.
The dial-up.
Molla.
Slight turn. Look at that. I'm wondering whether they could reverse the tab at the back side of the skate here, because they just stopped.
Italy on the port side.
Beautiful positioning by Marco, just a little bit further out. Wants to keep a boat length to windward. Now we're going to see where the Prada can nibble. We're going backwards here. Torben Grail has told Francisco de Angelis he likes the right.
Both boats on port deck now, guys. Yeah, both boats on port. So windward boat must keep clear. Both boats actually going backwards. The rules don't make any account for going backwards or forwards. Both Perfect. Both boats on port tech here, Nino. That's all right.
Just to let you know, guys, while we're watching this, 3 minutes to go. We have Russell Coots is the skipper of the New Zealand boat with Dean Barker, his backup helm. Brad Butterworth is on tactics and Tom Schnackenberg is on nav. And for the Prada Challenge, the Rossa boat, Francesco De Angelis and Torben Grail from Brazil. It's a very different pre-start, JB, isn't it? I think I'll fast forward. We could be sitting in a dial-up for quite a while. And very different. I'll come up to 20 seconds to go where we see that they've fallen out of that dial-up. New Zealand to windward.
New Zealanders as they're coming up to the start, right after they're on their way to the committee boat end. They've got power, they're burning it up. They won the race, and the New Zealand boat is right in the face of Prada at the start of race number 5.
Slow tech, mate, slow tech.
Absolutely magnificent. Dean Barker, it doesn't get any better than this.
Fantastic.
Just in case people wanted to go back to the old dial-ups. We're so...
And Nick, considering that was the state of the art then.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, the very best, the best that technology and sailors and technology teams could produce.
Exactly.
So it's not that long ago. It's amazing where we're at this stage now.
It is incredible
Let me tell you, I spent a bit of time with Glenn Ashby, and he's one of the key members of the Team New Zealand effort. And Glenn teamed up with myself and Etchells last year for the Victorian Etchell Championships. And the highlight for me was not so much sailing in the racing. It was actually, he stayed at my home in Melbourne, and the racing was over at Geelong. So it was about an hour trip. And the highlight for me was the travel time with Glenn there and back, morning and evening. And they'd demolished the opposition in Bermuda in the America's Cup with the catamarans, and they ran out of money 2 years before the event. They were about to issue a press release to say they were folding the syndicate. They just ran out of money, and a new sponsorship came in, and they got off and running again. So the conclusion was, to be successful this time around, there's some key takeaways from Glenn Ashby, and here's Glenn, the skipper of Team New Zealand. It's a little bit like having an Australian as the captain of the All Blacks. It's unprecedented where we're at here. So here's this guy, second time around, skipper of Team New Zealand, multiple, I think maybe 11 times A-class world champion, a phenomenal athlete in his own right. And he said, look, the key takeaways for the event, for the success and we spoke a lot about Bermuda, the last America's Cup, was one, if they were to be successful this time around, half the design team had to be new to the world of the America's Cup, on the basis that if indeed we have only people who say this is how we've always done it, we will not progress fast enough. So you go into the design studios of Team New Zealand, it's like a high school reunion of young people, young graduates from Auckland University and Wellington University and PhD, artificial intelligence people and so on and so forth. Really interesting stuff. The second is, because they've always worked on the smell of an oar rag, everyone still had to bring their own lunches, so no one could complain about the food. Now, I don't know how true that is now, but that's typical. And they talk about gauge 8. This is the Kiwi. This is part of the mantra. There's no such thing as an impossible problem. We'll use gauge 8 fencing wire to solve it, and that's a gauge 8 problem. And when we spent a lot of time, of course, with Thomas Schnackenberg, who was absolutely key for our 1983 America's Cup win. He was way out there, ultimate space cadet in many ways, and integrally involved in the Team New Zealand's philosophy and defences and challenges. But Tommy could actually solve a problem on the back of an envelope. It was a gauge 8 type mentality. So what Prada, what Bertelli and Spittle and the team are facing is the incredible ingenuity of the New Zealanders. In one, they've created a new design that actually works, and secondly, they've been working on this design longer than any other syndicate, including really the Luna Rossa Prada, even though they were challenger of record. So they have a real potential advantage here in having a longer, you might say, flight path in terms of the amount of time they've been able to spend in optimizing the design so far. So, in 2 weeks' time, we'll see where these boats shape up. But there's a high probability that the Kiwis are going to be really, really competitive.
Indeed. And all the intel we're getting out of New Zealand, John, I know you've heard a little bit as well, is that they're foiling on smaller foils, a smaller foil package at the minimum wind range of 6.2 knots, which is terrifying, but amazing.
Yeah, that's right. And on smaller foils, and there's particularly the mainsail control systems they have and developed in isolation. It's very, very advanced stuff. The actual sail, the twist profile, the way the mainsail in particular washes out the top end of the wind range, the new bat wing development that they're experimenting with at the moment. All of those things, they're going to be pretty tough. However, what we have seen is that Jimmy Spittle and his team, and I must say, Jimmy you have to say, is the X factor with that project, pulling, in my opinion, at least from an observer, pulling this well-developed team together in a much more maybe Anglo-Saxon pragmatic manner. The starting has been great, but the key advantage that the Prada syndicate will take to the start line is the match racing that they've already had since Christmas and Series 1 and then the finals that we saw last week.
Yeah, it will be very interesting, and we know that at the first press conference before this cup match begins, we know that Berling will say, we've had a lot of time to develop and sail on our own, and we think that is going to give us the edge. And we know that Jimmy and Kiko will say, we've had all the racing, and we know that will give us the edge. So the games are well underway, and we've seen that in the past few weeks for sure. Would you like to see an interview, JB? I have one with Pete Berling that I have lined up, or we could hear from Mr. Bruni after the racing in how excited they were and how happy he was to actually be able to show some emotion again, because Jimmy had been keeping him under the thumb and making him stay controlled. It's quite funny.
Let's hear the result of a huge amount of work by the Italians.
Yeah, sounds like a plan. Let's get Bruni up for you. He's quite a special character, and I'm looking forward to having him live on my show on Wednesday as well. So here's Bruni.
It was always very hard not to smile during the series. And you were trying to always ask me to smile, and I was forcing myself not to do it. But now it's time to smile. It's time to really enjoy this moment with the full team. It's been a lot of work, and everybody on the team deserved it. So I'm very proud of the team. I'm very proud of Italy. Everything is so perfect that I think we are going to try hard to win the America's Cup. We can promise that we will do our best, and then whatever comes, but we will do our best. I think we have a chance.
And he looks straight down the barrel of the camera. We've got a chance. I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and in there, and not only a chance, but obviously, the passion and the drive. Also, you've got to say the trust, Bruni and Jimmy Spittle, the way that project goes together. It's very different, quite radical compared to a conventional skipper tactician that moves from one side to the other. So, that's a great credit to both Jimmy and also Bruni in terms of pulling that relationship together, where they really are clearly joined at the hip, and trust is so fundamentally important, particularly when organisations are under extreme pressure, and that's what the America's Cup is about now.
100%. They are the yin and the yang, so to speak, I think. And they talk about the port side of the boat competing against the starboard side of the boat effectively with their numbers and everything. So they're onboard training partners. I think, JB, I'll show you this clip from the end of the race when we actually saw them cross the line. And I think this is a perfect example of just how different Jimmy and Kiko are and why they work so well together. It's absolutely beautiful, this little clip.
Fantastico! Fantastico! È bellissimo! È bellissimo! We are different, Australian and Italians, very different.
Gonna say well done to Luna Ray.
It was amazing. Basically, the commentator said to Jimmy, how was that? And he said, yes, it was a good day at the office. And in the background, you've got Kiko going like this in the background and starting to go mental. It was absolutely beautiful. It was a really good moment for them, but just the start. This is just step one in a two-step program, so to speak, JB. And you've been there.
Well, it's Ferrari taking on the world now. That's the way the Italians will see it. You know, and the ability to get that trophy into Italy, which they've never ever done in the history of the America's Cup. There's a lot at stake. It's wonderful stuff.
It is indeed fantastic stuff. And INEOS Team UK, we say goodbye to them. You were here when we said goodbye to New York Yacht Club as well. We discussed the progression of Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli from that semi-final, John. And it does get sad when we have to start saying goodbye to people. And I know we spoke about the send-off, so to speak. But Ben is a fierce competitor. You know, can you find any key points in his campaign or what we might see him want to change if we do see them go again?
Well, they'll obviously go through a really strong debrief to endeavour to understand. I think what we saw is the fact that the INEOS program was out in the left field. They're out away from the action. The action was Team New Zealand and the Italians as the challenger of record, working on the development of the design of this new class of yacht. And you know, on reflection, you saw the INEOS program. The first boat that they launched was way off the pace, and you know the second time was actually quite extreme. They had to do that. So they were punting in different directions. And also they have a lot of money. So it's hard, in my opinion, probably zero in through the fact that they have maybe too many options.
Sure.
But the fact is that, you know, in contrast, the Kiwis developed the design and had a longer runway in terms of the, you know, optimizing the project. And you'd have to say that it's much more of a pragmatic approach, because the only thing you can't buy in any of this stuff is time. You know, the whole development program is based around time. So you have to then eliminate and be really focused in terms of the evolution of really what you're doing here. So the Kiwi program has had significant advantage here relative to the INEOS thing. I suspect, you know, it'll be interesting, but Jim Ratcliffe, he's the man that will say go or no go, presumably next time around, being the, you know, the funder of the project, and it will be up to him to say, okay, are we in this thing for longer term? Remember with the America's Cup with Australia 2, our project, that was our 4th America's Cup challenge. These projects just don't necessarily come up from square one, from scratch, even though Ben has been involved. The last time, this was his 2nd Cup challenge, but in a totally different class. All I'm really saying is that you need a lot of experience, a lot of momentum, and fresh ideas to actually pull this thing together. The Kiwis so far are the best at it that we've ever seen in the history so far.
Do you think that their restrictions on budget force them to be more innovative? Oh,
yeah. You know, Grant Dalton, they ran out of money 2 years before Bermuda. They went from 40-odd people, according to Glenn Ashby, down to 8. They had 8 people around the board table on the day that they were going to, it was either go or no go to continue with the syndicate 2 years before the Bermuda America's Cup. They didn't have enough money to build a first boat, which everyone did. and everything was designed in the computer. And they went across, high risk, but highly, highly targeted, a fantastic design solution, as it turns out, showing just how sophisticated their software development programs are. Created, you don't buy these things off the shelf, created by young, can-do people who work 7x24 on the smell of an oil rig. Nothing like having a restricted budget to generate focus. And that's what the Kiwis have been extremely good. You know, gauge 8 mentality. It's really something. It's 4 million people. What they achieve in this space is quite phenomenal. It'll be really interesting again in 2 weeks' time how these boats shape up.
Definitely. So, I mean, arguably then, basically, we're just saying that perhaps INEOS Team UK or Ben Ainsley's projects, they just need a little bit more time to mature. Is that what we're saying? History
tells us that. That's the case. Yeah. And then having fresh people in as well, not people who've said this is the way we've always done it. So the infusion of fresh people based on, again, you know, discussions with Ashby and these characters, as well as the experience of and momentum of a syndicate. And part of the deal is you have 150, 180 people. It's the compatibility of these projects. You know, these are not simple things. So getting people working together in the same direction is really, it's a major management leadership challenge. And again, that comes from experience too, to putting these high programs together. You know, you very rarely would have a new Formula One motor racing syndicate formed and they go out and win the world championship.
So true.
It's impossible.
Yeah, indeed. So I think at this point, given that we're going to say goodbye to INEOS Team UK and move on to Luna Rossa and Emirates as the matchup, though we've already been speaking about it at some length, I might show the interview with Ben Ainsley at the end, just so that we can sort of review on what his thoughts were and where they thought they did have some strengths in their campaign and what they're looking forward to doing and what were their favourite moments. I think it's quite telling.
And let me say, Ben Ainsley, the most successful Olympic sailor that the world has ever seen. Incredible sailor.
He is an incredible sailor, and this won't be the last time we see him in the Cup. I've got a feeling. Here we go.
Oh, my initial thoughts are congratulations to Luna Rossa. And they sailed brilliantly, and they had the best package over the range of conditions, and you know, deserved to win. We're obviously disappointed. We fought tooth and nail and went down fighting even that fast in that last race. So I couldn't be prouder of the team, the way they've dealt with the challenges we've had over these last 3 or 4 years with this campaign. And certainly we look back to the World Series and the Christmas race, turning things around. But ultimately we weren't quick enough across the range of conditions. That's where we need to be if you're going to win the America's Cup. So, yeah, disappointed. We really wanted to get ourselves into the Cup, but we've got to go away and think about, you know, what was good about the campaign, but also what we didn't get quite right and why and how we can rectify that. Yeah, it's been a tough campaign. It's actually been a tough campaign the whole way through for a number of different reasons. I guess dealing with a new class of boat and all the challenges that brings. But certainly whilst we've been here in New Zealand, it's been, like you say, a bit of a roller coaster ride. And again, I can't thank the team enough because they just stuck to the task. Every single person in the organisation worked incredibly hard to turn this boat around and get us, you know, obviously get us through into the Prada Cup Final. So, yeah, that's what you need in moments like that. You need a strong team, and I'm really proud of them. Yeah, I mean, look, I started this team back in 2014 with the goal to get the Cup back to Britain, and as far as I'm concerned, until we get the job done, it's not over, so we've got to keep going. There's a lot of learning out of these campaigns, as you can imagine. You look at Luna Rossa and Team New Zealand, they've been in the Cup game now for 20 and 30 years, respectively. And that, whilst the people may change over the years, it's that learning and development that's the key. So, yeah, I think we've got to keep going, we've got to get the job done. I think this class of boat has been a huge success. It really has. I mean, it's the best boat I've ever sailed. I think it's perfect for the America's Cup when you really want to be trying to sit at the forefront of the technology in the sport. And it has the wow factor, you know, a 75-foot monohull foiling around at, you know, 50-odd knots. It's pretty cool. But yeah, I think it's been a very successful event. Well, look, I think we've learned a huge amount from this campaign. I can see a lot of people in this organisation that have grown massively in the last 4 years, and that it's a people game. So you've got to develop, nurture that talent, and and yeah, I think we now have the experience and we have the capability, to be a really credible challenger, to go all the way and win the cup, and that's what we're interested in. We're not happy with this result. We wanted to be in the final. We wanted to win the cup, and that's our focus. Best moment, probably race 1 of the round robins. Coming out of the blocks against American Magic, getting a good start, and the guys sailing the boat brilliantly, sailing away, and I think that left a few people's mouths open, and probably shut a few people up as well. So that was.
He's a bit fierce. He's like a dog with a bone with that cup, and he wouldn't be the first.
And what an insightful interview as well in terms of the overview. 2014, his second challenge. He understands the momentum, support that's required. And you look at the history of these projects, they just very rarely, in fact, it's never been the case that any project has been successful with a very short time frame. But time will tell whether Ratcliffe continues on. I'd be surprised if he doesn't. Again, he's involved with cycling and other sports, but the America's Cup, it blows everything away in terms of prestige. It is the most prestigious sporting event in the world, and the history shows us that. You cannot kill off this thing called the America's Cup through all the ups and downs and all the protests and all the court cases. We've just seen now an amazingly successful program in Auckland, halfway around the world from Europe. You just imagine if the Italians win it, how big a deal it would be back in Europe, in particular in Italy. So that's the mystique of this crazy thing called the America's Cup.
It is. Now, I've got quite a few people commenting saying that it would have been really interesting for this cup and for the round robins had we seen the America's Cup World Series events in Cagliari or Portsmouth, and they'd had a little bit more time to develop. But you guys never raced against each other historically, did you, JB? That's all new.
No. Yeah, totally. It was, and again, it's kind of interesting. The mystique of the cup, at least in a big chunk of it, is how will they come together? In terms of performance, and it's all speculation. Again, it's like the world of Formula One motor racing, where there's all these test programs going, but it's only the first when these cars are on the grid and on the tarmac, and they go around the circuit for the first time. Do we really see, with all the speculation? It's part of the build-up of the world of Formula One motor racing, which has been highly successful. So there's no question, World Series would have been intriguing, but I think the essence of the Cup is these projects being developed pretty much in isolation and then coming together. How's it going to happen? And that's all part of the speculation of this mysterious thing called the America's Cup.
I love it. Basically, the defender writes a mathematical problem. Everybody goes away and comes up with a solution, and they come back together and nerd it out to see who's got the best answer. Basically, yeah. I enjoy that. I think it's really fun. But the AC
and creative brains, young people solving problems. With the New Zealand project, they're both, one of the major things you see is that they're primarily from the bow, it goes all the way through down to the stern, and they increase the sail area. They found a loophole in the rule. You get another, that much, maybe, 30, 40 centimeters of sail area down below. And everyone could see the rule, but they've figured out, there's an opportunity here, and that's part and parcel of endeavoring to optimize a set of rules.
Exactly the same with the dual helm setup. I mean, it's funny. I think I was talking about this yesterday with somebody, how when somebody does something different as well, JB, we're quite happy to go, oh, that's weird, that'll never work, like the cyclaws and then the dual helm. But once it does work, it's the new thing, which is pretty amazing.
It's the new norm, yeah. So these projects do go forward in leaps and bounds. That's right.
Indeed.
So 2 weeks time, it'll be really interesting. But I think, as an observation, yes, some of the key data points is we're told how true it is that the foil area of the Kiwi boat is maybe 20 to 30% smaller than Prada, and they're flying in the same wind strengths. That's a bit scary. In other words, less drag. What are they doing? There's no question that the Kiwi sail development program, combined with the mast, the control systems, very, very sophisticated, what they've achieved. But one of the interesting things is Peter Burling is a fleet racer. He's not a match racer per se. And we saw that in the Christmas series, where they were a little all over the shop, even though the boat speed was very impressive against the challenges at that stage. Hopefully the challenges, obviously Prada have lifted their game in terms of pure speed. Bruni's suggesting a 10% increase in performance. Who knows, but they would know, but regardless. But the bottom line is that you've got Spittle, who's at the top of his game now. There's no question. He's born to do this stuff. He's shown that when he first got involved when he's in his early 20s, sailing Young Australia for Syd Fischer in Auckland. A match racing nut. He has his playbooks all sorted in his head by the coaching he's had over the years. He's going to be extremely good in starting and extremely good in the match racing. If the package, in other words, the total design package of Prada is competitive, they're going to be very, very tough. Burling is an Olympic gold medalist, blew the opposition away at the last Olympics, did not have to sail in the last race of the 49ers with his crew. He's a superb fleet racer. It's not his forte to be a match racer. He hasn't had the match racing experience over the last several months, really, compared to what we're seeing now with Spittle. So it'll be, is there a mismatch? Who knows? Relative to boat performance, lots of speculation.
Indeed, and we'll just have to wait and see. I just had somebody comment and say that they asked Ashby once if he would go back to the Olympics, and Ashby said, no, the Olympics is just a stepping stone to go and win the America's Cup. So that's an interesting comment from Ashby,
Yeah.
But we are seeing these sailors cross backward and forward, JB.
Yeah. Another comment here is that the Kiwis, you talk about Burling and Ashby, they've grown up in the world of foiling. They've been mucking around. They've been developing foiling systems since 2014. Way back in 2014, when Glenn and Burling were wanting to win the A-class World Championships as separate competitors, they hung out for over a month at Ashby's home in outside of Melbourne, training every day. And the days that they couldn't train, they were redeveloping foils in Glenn's workshop, massive workshop he's got at down in the peninsula. And they're living and dreaming foiling, other than the 49er class. And when you look at the other syndicates, they don't have that DNA, they don't have that pedigree in terms of sailors. But the Kiwis are right on the cutting edge of foiling, empathy for foiling boats. Burling went on to win the Moth World Championships in Sorrento outside of Melbourne, foiling. Ashby, I think 11 or 12 World A-class championships. The latest boats are all foiling. This is their world. So that's, when we talk about the technology that the sailing team can bring back to the design engineers, you'd have to say that the Kiwis are very, very formidable in that space. They live and breathe and eat the world of foiling, those boys.
I was at the Moth Worlds in 2014. I did the first interview with Burling when he won, and that was the first Moth World titles that he won. And the feeling in the air was very much that was going to be the beginning of something. And then, of course, we saw what happened in Bermuda, and he went on to win a gold medal as well in 2016. So yeah. I remember that moment, and it was very distinctive in my memory. And we saw that all the cup teams basically sent everybody down there to go sailing, and it was incredible to see the variety of sailing talent that knew that foiling was the next big thing, and everyone was pushing already.
But the Kiwis dominated.
Indeed, they really did, and Nathan Natteridge came second then to Peter Burling. So But the whole team, in terms of, Blair Tuke was sailing his own boat. Tom Slingsby's now gone on to win Mothworlds, but he was a little bit further back in the pack, so he did really well when it was windy. But Burling was fantastic over a range of conditions, which was awesome.
Yeah, so when you think about it, the Glen Ashby mentality, brain power, combined with the Burling and this whole ecosystem that they have, pretty impressive stuff. So I just flagged that in terms of the development, the learning curve that the Kiwis have had with these latest boats. So again, in 2 weeks' time, it'll be really interesting.
It is going to be incredible. Would you like to pick what you think might happen?
No.
Yeah, I'm not going to either. Let's walk the fence on this one.
Yeah, you have to say that the Kiwi project is, it's got the highest probability of success. But, sport is the last great unscripted drama known to mankind.
Love it.
I love that quote. True.
That is so true. Now, I have a few comments for you, JV. Alistair Murray said very early on in the piece, there he is, he never ages. So a bit of a shout out to Alistair Murray who's watching. Also, someone's commented and said that Burling's actually an engineer as well. So he really loves this kind of stuff. So that's not surprising. Someone else has also...
I was just trying to point in, rather than I went across to Bermuda, and one of the great privileges I have based on what I've done in the past is I'm able to get into all these syndicates, in the cone of silence. For some reason, they trust me. So I have a lot of secrets over the years. But we went a full tour through the, Grant Dalton took us through the Team New Zealand project in Bermuda before they won the Cup. And he was saying that no one is allowed to go near the foils for the final polishing except Peter Burling.
Wow.
That was yeah. No one was able to touch the foils. It was Peter's domain, and had engineering background similar to myself. Yeah. Typically, these projects are so technology evolved and having to push the envelope that you need that technology background on the boat to be able to feed back to the design engineers. So, yeah, the rudders and the foils on the those AC boats back in Bermuda, that was a no-go zone except for Peter Burling. That's
incredible. I mean, it's funny because I can sort of understand where he's coming from, because I'm not sure I would let anybody touch my boat before I went racing either. So, you get a bit funny when you've got your asset and your platform and you put so much time into the boat. I was actually talking to somebody yesterday again about that incident that we saw at the start of race 5 with INEOS coming in above Jimmy, and Jimmy actually gave away the start to make sure that no crash happened, and Ben was actually apparently very thankful that there was no crash there. But you get very connected to your boat, and I guess it might have been the same with you and Australia too. I mean, we all have seen the curtain and how protective you guys were of that boat. Do you think there's that relationship as well?
Oh, yeah, it's just part of the deal. You live and breathe it. It's a part of the envelope of your existence.
It's your horse. Indeed. Now, I've had somebody else comment to you, JV, and say that if you'd had your way, perhaps Emirates and Luna Rossa would be fighting for the America's plate. What's that all about?
Oh, this is beautiful. So Ben Lexon, God bless him. Let me say, Ben was, in my opinion, the Leonardo da Vinci of this country. He was way out there. And he was an orphan. He went to school at 9 and left at 12. But he was a student of life. He was the most interested and interesting person that I've ever come across. And I've met some incredible people around the world. But at any rate, so Benny said clearly, if we ever win that effing thing, that frigging thing, as the Americans would say, I'm going to get a steamroller and crush it, and it's going to become the America's plate. So when we won the Cup way back in 1983 at the Marble House, where the Vice Commodore of the New York Yacht Club presented the America's Cup to us, to Alan Bond and myself and the team, not the Commodore, he saw fit to go to would you believe he saw fit to go to Paris on business? Could never happen in Australia, but putting that aside. At any rate, Vice Commodore Bob Stone, presented a hubcap to Ben Lexton. It was beautiful. And then, of course, carried on to the America's Cup was presented to us as well. So, and Benny also said that if we ever win that thing again in the future, all sailcloth will be kangaroo hide. On the basis that, would you believe, way back in, I think, 1962 or 67, I'm not sure which one, the Americans concluded that all the countries had to create their own sailcloth because the Australian effort was getting too close to winning it way back then.
Far out.
So there you go.
And we've had that discussion.
Again, yeah. So all of this stuff is all part of the pedigree of this crazy thing called the America's Cup, and that's what Patricio Bertelli, 6 America's Cup challenges now under his belt, is endeavouring to be successful on behalf of his beloved country, Italy. It's a big deal. It
is a massive deal. JB, how many campaigns did you do?
I only did 5.
Only 5?
over a 25-year period, yeah. So I've lived out of a suitcase for long periods of time. You can ask my darling wife, Rossa, how many times. She knows exactly.
I'm sure she does. And we send our love to Rossa as well. I know she's an incredible lover of the Cup as well. And thank you, JB, for your passion. I think we should let you go. We've held you up for almost an hour, but there's lots of people saying thank you. Ben's wing keel in 83 and JB's story was a lot of my inspiration to get into sailing. So there's a lot of people sending out comments like that, JB. So thank you for inspiring so many generations of sailors so that we have, a lot to talk about right now.
Terrific. Well, let the show continue, that's for sure.
Exactly. And hopefully we'll see you later on in the piece when I'm hoping, JB, and I know I said this about the Prada Cup Final, but I am actually legitimately hoping that we see a battle down to the death between these two teams. Nothing would make me happier.
Well, and the world of sailing, I think.
100%, indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us. Big thanks to JB for his support and passion for our sport and his support of our show as well. We really appreciate your insights, JB. And on Wednesday, we're really looking forward to having Francesco Cecco Bruni on the show as well from about this time, from about 6:15 p.m. So we'll be able to ask him from the driver's seat on the port side just what went down and what we can expect from that angle as well. So hopefully...
What a passionate man that man is.
He's
fantastic.
He's so passionate, but I love how he tried so hard to stay under the wire. I'm not sure if you watched the heart rate, JB, but Jimmy's is at like 63. And when they're about to finish a race, Kiko's goes, whoop, up to 145. The heart rate monitor doesn't lie. Oh my gosh. What do you think your heart rate would sit at, JB, when you're racing?
Well, it's hard to know. My resting pulse is about 45.
Wow.
Yeah. But I've got no idea. But 65, the Jimmy Spittle.
Yeah.
That's impressive stuff. So you've got to say he's in the zone. He's in what we call the flow zone. He's in the flow zone.
Totally.
And good on him.
Really I was sitting at...
Again, this is his game. This is his place. He's born to do this stuff. And you can see that. Yeah.
It's unbelievable, these athletes. 45, you're resting. When I was watching the racing on Sunday, my heart rate was at 88. Just watching. I love it. It's fantastic. Thank you so much, JB. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you soon. This is your AC Chat and Wrap Show. My name's Nick Douglas. Amazing to have John Bertrand with us tonight. Thank you all for watching. See you soon.
Thank you.